The morning sun barely peeked through the cracked blinds of a small rundown apartment. A soft hum of traffic echoed from the street below. Inside, Daniel Cooper, a single father in his early 30s, sat at the kitchen table with a worn-out wallet open in front of him. Inside, there were only a few crumpled bills, barely enough for rent, let alone a full meal. Across from him, his 5-year-old daughter Lily sat swinging her legs, her eyes bright despite the peeling wallpaper and cold toast on her plate. "Daddy," she said softly, "can we go out for breakfast today? Like at a real diner?" Daniel's heart clenched. He wanted to say yes immediately. He wanted to give her pancakes dripping with syrup, warm smiles from friendly waitresses, a normal day like other kids had. But the numbers in his wallet screamed reality. He hesitated, then smiled weakly. "You know what? I think we can do that, Pumpkin. You've been so brave lately. Let's make it special." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement as she jumped from her chair and hugged his leg. "You're the best daddy ever." He laughed softly, hiding the ache in his chest. "Go get your shoes, sweetheart." The small diner on the corner of Maple Street smelled of coffee, butter, and something comforting, like memories Daniel wished he could afford more often. They sat by the window where sunlight poured over the table. Lily pressed her nose against the glass, watching people outside. A waitress approached, cheerful and kind. "Good morning, you two. What can I get started for you?" Lily looked up eagerly. "Pancakes. With strawberries." Daniel smiled apologetically. "Just one short stack, please. And a small coffee for me." The waitress nodded, though her eyes flicked to Daniel's tired clothes and Lily's patched jacket. She'd seen that look before. People trying to give their kids a good day even when it meant they'd go hungry themselves. As the waitress left, Lily leaned across the table. "Daddy, do you miss Mommy?" Daniel froze for a moment. It had been 3 years since Lily's mother, Emily, had walked out of their lives. No note, no calls, just gone. He'd told Lily that her mother went far away, but the truth haunted him every day. I miss her sometimes," he admitted softly. "But I have you, and that's all that matters." Lily nodded, her curls bouncing. "Mommy must miss us too," she said innocently. Daniel forced a smile. "Maybe she does." When their food arrived, Lily clapped her hands in delight. But just as Daniel was about to take his first sip of coffee, he heard a soft gasp. Lily's eyes had widened, her little face frozen in surprise. "Daddy," she whispered. "That's Mommy." Daniel followed her gaze and his heart stopped. At a corner table sat a well-dressed woman in a white coat, her hair perfectly styled, her presence commanding the room without trying. She laughed softly as a waiter poured her coffee, the kind of laugh Daniel hadn't heard in years. Before he could react, Lily jumped off her chair and ran across the diner. "Mommy!" she cried, her small voice echoing across the room. Every head turned. Daniel's world went silent. The woman looked up, startled, her cup trembling as she saw the little girl running toward her. The next moment hung in the air like glass ready to shatter. The woman whispered, "Lily." In disbelief, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Could it really be her, the woman who vanished and left them behind, now sitting in a diner dressed like wealth itself? The room fell into stunned silence as Lily wrapped her arms around the woman's waist. Daniel rose slowly, his knees weak. His life, his pain, his questions, all of it stood just a few feet away, looking back at him with tear-filled eyes. The diner went completely silent. Forks froze midair, conversations halted, and every pair of eyes seemed to follow the small girl hugging a stranger's waist. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears as he walked toward them, each step heavier than the last. "Lily," he called, trying to steady his trembling voice. The woman looked up, her face pale, lips parted in shock. When her eyes met his, the world seemed to blur, memories crashing like waves against a broken shore. "Emily," he breathed, barely able to say her name. She stood there speechless, as if her past had suddenly materialized in front of her. Lily looked between them, confused but glowing with hope. "Mommy, it's really you. I knew you'd come back," she said, clutching Emily's hand tightly. Emily dropped to her knees, tears welling in her eyes as she touched her daughter's cheek. "Oh my God, you've grown so much," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief and guilt. Daniel finally reached them, his face pale with a storm of emotions, anger, confusion, heartbreak. "You remember her now?" he said quietly. his tone cutting through the tension like glass. Emily blinked rapidly, wiping tears she didn't even know were falling. Daniel, I didn't know where to start. You don't understand. Don't understand. He interrupted, his voice cracking. You disappeared, Emily. You walked out on us without a word. I raised her alone. I buried your memory to protect her. The waitress froze behind the counter, pretending to busy herself but listening closely. As the whole diner seemed to lean into the unfolding drama, Emily's lips trembled. I was lost. I made mistakes, she said softly. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you or her. I was sick, Daniel. I thought I was dying. I didn't want Lily to watch me fade away. Daniel's anger faltered for a moment, confusion flickering in his eyes. Sick you? What are you talking about? She nodded, clutching her chest. It was cancer. Stage 3. I left for treatment abroad. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to ruin your life if I didn't make it. But I did, Daniel. I made it. And I spent years trying to find you. I didn't know you'd moved, changed your number, everything. Daniel felt his knees weaken, the floor beneath him tilting. For years he'd painted her as the villain who abandoned them. But now, standing before him was a woman who'd fought death itself just to see her child again. Still, the ache of those lost years burned inside him. You could have called, he whispered. You could have written something, anything. Emily nodded, tears streaming freely. You're right. I was wrong. I was scared and selfish. I thought I was doing what's best for both of you, but it was the worst mistake of my life. Lily, oblivious to the depth of adult pain around her, tugged Emily's sleeve. Mommy, can you come home with us now? She asked softly, hope shimmering in her tiny voice. Emily's lip quivered as she looked at Daniel, silently asking a question she didn't have the right to voice. Daniel looked at his daughter, then at Emily, torn between the bitterness of the past and the warmth in Lily's eyes. He exhaled shakily. Let's sit down, he murmured. They moved back to the booth, 3 lives suddenly thrown together after years apart. Emily wiped her eyes, trying to regain composure. You look tired, Daniel, she said softly. Still working double shifts? He gave a bitter chuckle. Triple sometimes. Life doesn't stop for single dads. She nodded slowly, guilt flooding her expression. You did an incredible job with her, she said, glancing at Lily. She's happy. She's kind. You gave her everything. Daniel shook his head. Everything but a mother. The silence that followed was heavy, but there was something fragile and human in it, like a broken bridge slowly being rebuilt plank by plank. Then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife deeper, the diner door opened, and a tall, sharply dressed man in a tailored suit walked in. His presence was commanding, his confidence obvious. He looked directly at Emily and smiled. There you are, he said warmly. I was starting to wonder where you went. Daniel's heart sank. Emily froze. The man reached her table, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Who's this? Daniel asked, his voice tightening. Emily's eyes darted between the 2 men, caught between truth and disaster. This is it, Richard, she said softly. My husband. The word hit Daniel like a punch. Lily's smile faltered. Mommy, you're married? Emily's face crumbled as she whispered, It's not what you think, Daniel. Please just listen. But Daniel was already standing, his heart shattering all over again. For a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe. The word husband echoed in his ears like a cruel thunderclap. The man standing beside Emily looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. Sharp suit, polished shoes, gold watch gleaming in the light. He smiled politely, unaware of the storm his presence had ignited. I'm Richard Hayes, he said, extending a hand toward Daniel. And you must be... Daniel didn't move. He simply stared, his jaw tight, his pulse hammering. Emily stood between them, trembling. Richard, this is Daniel. He's Lily's father. The air thickened with silence. Richard's smile faltered as realization dawned. He looked down at Lily, who was clinging to Emily's coat, confused and scared. You have a daughter? He asked quietly. Emily's lips quivered. Yes. I was going to tell you. You didn't, Daniel cut in, his voice low but edged with fury. You moved on, built a new life, and left us to pick up the pieces. The waitress subtly dimmed the jukebox volume, as if the diner itself was holding its breath. Emily shook her head, tears welling again. Daniel, please, Richard doesn't know the whole story. I never meant to hide Lily forever, I didn't know how to come back to you after everything. And then she stopped herself, but it was too late. Richard's voice hardened. After everything? Emily, what's going on? Daniel rose, his voice shaking but controlled. What's going on is that 3 years ago she walked out on her family. And now she's here, married to a billionaire. Richard blinked. Billionaire? Daniel scoffed. Look at you. You think I don't recognize money when I see it? You're the kind of man who buys companies before breakfast. Richard exhaled slowly, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. You're not wrong, he admitted. But this isn't about money. He looked at Lily, then back at Daniel. It's about a little girl who deserves answers. Emily reached for Daniel's arm, her voice breaking. Daniel, please sit. Let me explain. Against his better judgment, he did. For Lily's sake. For the truth. Emily clasped her hands tightly, her voice trembling as she began. When I left, I didn't have anyone. My treatment was painful, lonely, and I nearly gave up. Then I met Richard. He helped me through it. He was kind, patient, and when the doctors said I was in remission, he proposed. I told myself it was a second chance at life, but not a replacement for the one I lost. Her eyes glistened as she turned to Daniel. I thought of you both every single day. Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to hate her, but pain had a strange way of softening when faced with sincerity. And now? He asked quietly. Now you're happy, Rich, and we're just a chapter you'd rather forget? Emily shook her head. No, that's why I came here this morning. I told Richard I had something important to do. I didn't expect to find you here, Daniel, but maybe fate did. Richard's expression softened slightly as he looked at the small girl between them. Lily, he said gently, kneeling down. Your mom talked about you once. She said she wished she could hold you again. Lily blinked, unsure, but there was something kind in his tone that made her inch closer. Do you love my mommy? She asked innocently. Richard smiled faintly. Yes, but I also think your daddy is very brave for raising you all by himself. Lily's little face lit up, and for the first time, Daniel saw a glimpse of humility in the billionaire's eyes, something real. Emily wiped her tears, her voice trembling. Daniel, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want to be part of Lily's life again, even if that means standing in the background. Daniel looked at her, his heart torn between the wounds of yesterday and the fragile hope of tomorrow. You don't get to walk in and out whenever it's convenient, he said softly. She's not a memory you can visit, she's a child who needs stability. Before Emily could reply, Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at them. I think we should all talk somewhere private, he suggested. Not here. Daniel frowned. Why? Richard hesitated, then lowered his voice. Because this isn't just about family. There's something else you both need to know. Emily's brows furrowed. Richard, what are you talking about? He looked at her gravely. The reason I first met you at that hospital, it wasn't by chance. I knew who you were, Emily, and I knew about Daniel and Lily. Daniel froze, his eyes narrowing. What? Richard met his gaze calmly. Yes, Daniel. I've known about you for a long time. The diner went still again. The storm wasn't over, it was only beginning. The words hit Daniel like thunder. You knew about us? He asked, voice trembling between disbelief and anger. The diner felt suddenly smaller, the walls pressing closer. Emily turned toward Richard, confusion etched across her face. Richard? What do you mean you knew? Richard sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair, the confidence fading from his posture. Emily, when I first met you at the hospital, I wasn't just a random investor supporting cancer research. I was there funding a private medical program, and one of the patient files I read was yours. That file mentioned your emergency contact, Daniel Cooper, and a 5-year-old daughter named Lily. I knew you had a family. Emily's eyes widened. You knew all this, and you still... He nodded. Yes, I didn't say anything because I saw how broken you were. You were fighting for your life, and I didn't want to bring you more pain. I thought, maybe you'd tell me when you were ready. Daniel clenched his fists. So what? You played savior while keeping secrets? You thought you had the right to choose when she'd tell the truth? Richard's expression hardened slightly. I'm not your enemy, Daniel. I gave Emily the best care money could buy. I didn't force her to marry me. She made that choice. Emily's voice shook. Stop, please. Both of you. She looked between them, tears streaking her face. Richard, you should have told me you knew about Daniel and Lily. And Daniel, he didn't make me leave, you know that. But Daniel's heart was already collapsing under the weight of everything. Years of struggle, loneliness, guilt, it all surged inside him. Do you even understand what it was like? He said hoarsely. Watching our daughter cry every night, asking why Mommy never came back. I sold my guitar, my father's watch, just to buy her birthday cakes. And now you tell me you built a life with someone who knew we existed? Richard's tone softened. Daniel, listen to me. I didn't come here to fight. I came here because there's something else. Something I haven't told either of you. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a document and placing it on the table. This, he said, is the file that led me to you. It's a financial trust. Emily's name was never removed from it. And the owner of that trust, he paused, looking directly at Daniel, is your late father. Daniel blinked, stunned. My father? Richard nodded. He had shares in my company. He invested quietly decades ago under a private agreement. After his death, those shares multiplied in value. I've been trying to locate his heirs. I didn't realize until recently that one of them was you. The world seemed to tilt. Daniel felt dizzy. You're saying, my father owned part of your company? Yes, Richard said quietly. And the inheritance, everything, is legally yours and Lily's. Emily gasped. Daniel, that means... But Daniel cut her off, his voice barely above a whisper. You're telling me my daughter isn't poor anymore? Richard smiled faintly. She was never poor, Daniel. You just didn't know what you already had. Daniel sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. For years he had struggled, working night shifts, selling belongings, skipping meals, never knowing that the fortune he'd dreamed of giving Lily had been waiting all along. Emily reached across the table, gently touching his arm. You did it all without knowing. That's what makes you the richest man I've ever met, she said softly. Richard nodded in agreement. You're the kind of father money can't buy. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air in the diner seemed lighter, almost reverent. Lily, oblivious to the complexity of the moment, tugged her daddy's sleeve. Does this mean we can buy pancakes every day now? She asked. Daniel chuckled through his tears, pulling her into a hug. Something like that, sweetheart. Emily smiled through her tears, her heart breaking and healing all at once. Richard leaned forward, his tone sincere. Daniel, I know you don't trust me, and you don't have to. But I'd like to help you manage what's rightfully yours. Not as a businessman, but as someone who respects what you've done for your daughter. Daniel looked up, eyes red but resolute. Maybe I don't trust easily anymore. But if this is for Lily's future, I'll listen. Emily placed a trembling hand over his. Daniel, thank you for giving her love when I couldn't. For the first time, Daniel didn't pull away. She deserved it, he whispered. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the diner windows, washing away the morning sunlight. But inside, something new had begun, an understanding, fragile but real. Days passed after that unforgettable morning at the diner, but Daniel's mind remained a storm of emotions. He couldn't shake the image of Emily's tears or Richard's quiet sincerity when he said, "You're the kind of father money can't buy." The inheritance had changed everything, and nothing all at once. The world had handed him a new life, yet his heart still carried years of scars. Every night he tucked Lily into bed, watching her peaceful little face, and whispered, "You're my reason for everything." Then one evening, a knock came at his apartment door. He opened it to find Emily standing there holding a folded piece of paper. She looked fragile, almost unsure of her right to be there. "Daniel," she began softly, "I came to give you this." She handed him the paper. It was a letter, yellowed slightly at the edges. "Your father wrote it," she explained, her voice trembling. "Richard found it among the trust documents." Daniel unfolded it slowly, the handwriting instantly familiar. "My son," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone. I know life won't be easy, but I hope you never measure your worth by money. True wealth is the love you give and receive. Take care of those who need you. Someday it will all come back to you." Tears filled Daniel's eyes as he read the last line. "Forgive before it's too late." He lowered the letter, unable to speak. Emily's voice broke the silence. "I've spent every day wishing I could turn back time," she said. "But all I can do is ask you to let me be part of her life again, even if you never forgive me." Daniel looked at her, his eyes full of pain and compassion. "Emily," he said slowly, "I spent years blaming you. I hated you. Then I missed you. Then I just stopped trying to feel anything at all. But Lily, she still looks for you in every kind woman she meets. Maybe it's time I stop fighting what she needs." Emily's lips quivered. "You mean—" "I mean," he said softly, "you can see her. We'll take it slow. She deserves to know her mother, not the story I told her, but the truth." A single tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered, "Thank you." That weekend, the three of them met again, this time not in a diner filled with curious eyes, but in a quiet park where Lily could run free. She held both her parents' hands, smiling as if nothing had ever been broken. Richard arrived later, dressed casually, carrying a small box. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said gently. Daniel nodded stiffly. "You helped save her life. You've earned your place here." Richard smiled faintly and handed the box to Lily. "This is for you, little one," he said. Inside was a tiny silver locket with her name engraved on it. "It's from all of us," Emily added softly. Lily opened it, revealing a small picture inside. One half of her father holding her as a baby, the other of her mother in a hospital bed, smiling weakly but alive. "Now you'll always have both of us with you," Emily whispered. Daniel's throat tightened as he watched Lily throw her arms around her mother. The moment glowed with something beyond words, something pure and healing. He turned to Richard, voice low but steady. "I still don't know how to thank you." Richard looked out toward the playground, thoughtful. "You already did," he said. "You proved that being rich doesn't mean much if you don't have someone worth living for." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the golden light fell across them. Four souls bound by fate, forgiveness and a child's simple love. Emily turned to Daniel one last time. "Do you ever think we could start over?" she asked softly. Daniel hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Maybe not the way we were," he said, "but maybe in a way that's better for Lily's sake." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Later that night, as Daniel carried Lily home, she rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Daddy, Mommy's nice. I think she missed us." Daniel smiled through the ache in his chest. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said softly. "She did." He looked up at the sky, feeling something he hadn't in years. Peace. Maybe forgiveness really was the greatest kind of wealth.